Okie doke. Welcome everyone to Inspire, Innovate, Ignite, Conversations That Count. So glad that you're here with us today because we have this fantastic topic that I know is, everyone can benefit from. So today we have some incredible panelists and we're going to be discussing mindfulness as a way of life. And in our world today, so many things, we just come into contact with all these stressors and overwhelm and frustration and all these situations that can cause chaos in our life. And it's part of many people's daily existence. And so it's easy to reach for something other than just being mindful. But today we're going to learn how to practice being mindful. And our guests are going to share some tips and practices that you can take home and use immediately. So get ready for lots of wisdom and tips and techniques to bring mindfulness into your daily practice so you can experience more calmness and contentment and fulfillment, because that's what we all want, right? So this is an ongoing conversation, the Conversations That Count series, and we've had lots of featured events and we have lots more coming up, and you can find them on the sacredyou.love website under featured events, so you can check that out later. And now I just like to introduce our lovely panelists that we have today. So starting with Becky Edwards. Becky went from struggling with major depression and every kind of anxiety to living out her biggest and wildest dreams in just 3 years. Her mission is to create a space that encourages, supports, and celebrates the courage it takes to express ourselves authentically to the world. The best way she knows how to do that is through writing. So welcome, Becky. And Cynthia Gregory is an award-winning writer and author of Journaling as a Sacred Practice, an Act of Extreme Bravery, and What is Possible from Here. As a change-making creative thinker, Cynthia coaches impactful leaders to develop literary legacies in the form of personal histories, works of fiction, and professional memoirs. As an executive coach, she assists high achievers to develop a narrative that aligns with their life purpose and activates their distinct leadership presence. Cynthia is passionate about helping innovators to play to their strengths, maintain clarity, and gain a healthier, more productive life-work harmony. Welcome, Cynthia. And we have Jen Rosner. Jen is a conscious law of attraction trainer and teacher of the foundational principles of conscious creation, and would love for you to join her to learn how to implement these key principles so that you can consciously create a life that you love. You see, success isn't personal, it's structural. Jen is the host of Conscious Law of Attraction Tribe, so you can join her there. And then we have Energy Abrams, who is the owner of Energy Speaks Life. She's the speaker, life and relationship coach, mediator, and author. And with her positive energy and caring spirit, Energy has the ability to connect with the high achievers while understanding the why behind the choices they make, as she coaches and mentors them along their journey of transforming their personal and professional lives. She is the self-mastery coach, and she teaches and demonstrates that when you master your mind, you master your emotions, and therefore you master your assignment. Welcome, Energy. And my name's Lisa. I'm an intuitive mentor and visibility expert, and I help women break through barriers that are stopping them from their next level visibility and success so that they can finally achieve or receive the abundance, freedom, and fulfillment that the universe wants to give them. So welcome, everyone. We have a full day planned, and I'm super excited for this topic because, mindfulness is just it's the best way of life is all I can say. So what I'd love to do is have you start by sharing how you discovered mindfulness and why you believe it's so important in today's world. So Becky, why don't you start with that?
Thank you. Yes, how I discovered mindfulness was kind of just lucky, I guess. I had been struggling with depression and anxiety for a couple of years, and I had been working with medical professionals, and I had been doing the things that I knew how to do, or the things that I was being told to do, medication and rest and things like that. But it really wasn't working. It really wasn't helping. And so I really just surrendered to the fact that I was not doing the things that were going to help me. And I needed to be open to trying really anything that could lead me down the right path. And so I went down a path of just trying to find new things to try. And of course, meditation was at the top of that list. And through meditation, I found, my chakra system and just living more mindfully, eating more mindfully, walking more mindfully, sleeping more mindfully, doing all of those things. But it really was just a journey of I need to try new things. And it's the saying of you can't get healthy in the same environment you got sick in. So I had to really just change pretty much everything and be open to trying new things. So that's how I found it. Luck of the draw, I guess.
Oh, that's great. That's a great quote. I love that. You cannot, yes, say that again, will you please? You can't
Yeah,
find
you
health.
can't get healthy in the same environment you got sick in.
Yeah, beautiful. Perfect. Yes, that's so true. Thank you, Becky. Energy, do you want to chime in there?
Certainly, thank you. For me, the way I discovered mindfulness is after I had gone through quite a few things in life, both personal and professionally, whether it be relationships, intimate relationships, and then back when I was working more of the 9 to 5 corporate jobs, I would notice that it felt like things were out of my control. However, internally, I knew that I had a way to control my life. And so I started doing some research and started reading and started just taking time with myself in order to learn me and to learn about why I found myself or why I allowed myself to be put in these certain situations or going through certain obstacles when after I would look back on it, I saw and I realized I had a choice to either be there or to have gone another route. And just over time, after being sick and tired of being sick and tired and saying enough is enough, I decided to start really being intentional about my way of living and about the choices that I was making. And so, with my research and then my own personal development journey, also going through my own coaching and then becoming a coach, all of that helped me learn and understand mindfulness. And it literally is a way of life for me as well. There's so much more peace and understanding and calmness in my life that nothing there's nothing I would trade for it. So that would be my response as far as how I discovered mindfulness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. I can definitely relate to that. It's like, you feel out of control, but there's a way forward. You just don't know what you don't know. And becoming aware of that you don't know allows you to make better choices and be conscious in the moment. So thank you for that energy. It's beautiful. Cynthia, I'd love to hear from you.
Hi. So I discovered mindfulness accidentally, like so many people do. I discovered it when I discovered writing. And I was a teenager, typical teenager with all kinds of feels that I didn't know what to do with, swirling around in my head and my body. And I discovered that when I put words on paper, when I express my emotions on paper, they were easier to manage. And I could play around with them. I could write a different story, and which is what I do. Another aspect of that I've discovered over time, as I too was coach and then became a coach, I got on fire with that, is that I discovered that writing is a form of embodiment, and you can't be necessarily in the future or the past with it. If you are completely present with it, you are living mindfully. And simply recording what's going on around you in such a way that it can inform you deeply about how you're living your life, or finding solutions that as hard as you think you can, you can't think hard enough to fix some situations, but you can tap into a deeper wisdom through mindfulness in a journaling practice that I haven't found anywhere else to be as powerful. So to me, it's very much connected to writing.
Yeah, thank you. I love to write as well. I find a lot of value in journaling. You can find patterns, you can find your stories, you can, all of those things. So that's beautiful. Thank you. Jen, I'd love to hear from you.
So I have always felt like there was something wrong with me. And I spent most of my life trying to find something to fix myself, improve myself, heal myself. I learned all kinds of things like intuitive development, chakra balancing, theta healing, subconscious reprogramming. And it was like, maybe if I do one more thing, if I clear one more belief, the scales will tip in my favor so that life will be easy. And it just never was. I could never really get out of my own way. But I kept trying, and it was all from the perspective that this will fix me finally. And then finally, I found a mentor who had a completely different approach. And he was like, you're not broken. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to do anything. You can be exactly who you are and create anything and everything you want, because success is not personal, it's structural. And I didn't understand it, but there's something inside me that was just like, oh my God, this is it, right? And so I started studying with him, and it became like understanding the two structures, that if you come from a problem orientation, you're going to get stuck in this hamster wheel of always trying to fix yourself. But if you come from a creative orientation, then you're going to be able to move, flow toward your desired end results. And things are not always going to be easy, but you'll be movement. There's no more stuckness. And so with mindfulness, for me at this point, it's really, where's my focus? Am I focusing on the problem? Am I focusing on all of my sabotaging patterns and my thoughts? Or am I focusing on where I'm going and what I'm creating? And so I have a choice in any moment where to put my focus and how to act from that focus. And, when my focus shifts, like it always will, because no one's perfect, it's like, oh, interesting. I was focused over there. Okay, so now let's shift, right? And let's move forward instead of staying there and beating myself up. So mindfulness and meditation and just really looking at where my focus is super, super important.
I love that. And I can totally relate, Jen, because, we do come from that mental mind where we try and fix. That's where we've been programmed to live. And when you are feeling broken, you want to fix something, but then we have this other way of looking at things, like what is it that I do want instead of what don't I want? And when we start living from that place of what do I want instead of what do I not want, that problem, like you explain it, life shifts, and that's part of mindfulness. So thank you for bringing that up. I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing, everyone. And what came up for me is, I know a lot of you are experts in self-expression, and so I'd love to hear from you about, the old was fixing from the mental mind, and we're moving into the heart, where we can open up and be mindful using our mental mind, but not fixing, and flowing into the heart where we can feel self-expressed. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how feeling expressed and expressing yourself in the present moment, in your work, in your life, in your relationships, helps with the mindfulness aspect. So who would like to answer that? Okay, I'll just pick Becky. Why don't you go first?
Thank you. First of all, everybody, everything you just said, it was so on point, and it really makes me remember some of the things that I knew and maybe have already kind of let slip away. But how does self-expression, or how do I use self-expression to stay mindful? Is that the question there?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. One of the things that I do and that I teach is, like Cynthia, journaling for me is one of the main places that I learned mindfulness. And one of the main things that helped me, or that I realized the pattern that I saw, was when I would get monkey mind, and the squirrels and the monkeys would just kind of be ping-ponging around, my anxiety would get high because I'd be thinking about this and I'd be thinking about this, and I could never focus on even one problem at a time. But when I would write, it would allow me to finish a thought. And that for me was one of the most helpful things that I could do for myself, because once I got it down on paper and finished the whole thought, not just the beginning of it and then ping-ponging back and forth into something else, but finished that whole thought and then looked at it, I could be like, sometimes I would say, I actually don't believe that. Or that doesn't really ring true to me, or even, where is that coming from? Where did that come from in my life? And it allowed me to kind of go deeper and slow down my thought process through writing and finishing the thought. So for me, writing and journaling is super important, and I do it, maybe not daily, but definitely several times a week.
Yeah, I love that. Slowing down to be mindful. I mean, when that monkey mind is constantly running, that's when your anxiety goes through the roof, and that's when you get overwhelmed and frustrated and feel frozen in time, because you can't move from, there's no space to create from that fullness, from that. Yeah. So I love that. Thank you. Cynthia, I see you nodding. Yes, let's hear from you.
Yes. Creative expression, and like Becky said, that writing slows you down. You have to be in the moment. And I especially advocate writing by hand. I know it's unfashionable today to do that, but precisely because it slows you down, you're listening on a deeper level. You're noticing on a deeper level. It is a purely physical experience. And I think that in addition, that here's a really great trick. If you really want to slow your writing down, write with your non-dominant hand. It's painful and it's slow, but it reveals such deep, deep wisdom. It's amazing. I've also found that in the process of creative expression, which is so fulfilling, I believe we're all built and designed to be creative expressions in the world. And where I'm most happy is when I'm doing that, whether it's dabbling with watercolor, which I'm not very good at, but I love it and I'm absorbed by it, and it brings me such great joy. And because there's an element of not knowing, I don't know what I'm doing. And in that curiosity, there's just so much room for creative expression. And the same thing is in writing anything. It requires great focus. You can't be thinking about making dinner and work on that essay or that blog post. It's like, if you're really in your creative zone, time stops, the world disappears, and there's just nothing more beautiful than that experience. And then you step out of it and you return to your normal world. But the more I find that the more I incorporate those opportunities for creative expression, that mindfulness is a natural result of that.
Beautiful. I love getting lost in my creativity too, because it's like, if you think of it as it's just an expression, it's just playing. It's not, you're not doing it for anybody. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't matter what it turns out like, it's just expressing. So yeah, it gives you a little bit of permission to just be. I love that. Thank you. Energy, do you want to, yeah, let's hear from you.
Sure. So the slowing down, this is perfect. One of the things that I'm really big on, and I actually say it out loud, is suggest pause. And with pausing, one of the things that I like to do is yoga. That's one of my preferred forms of just expressing myself, those feelings, the emotions, the thoughts that I may be having. And that slows time down, and that slows my thoughts down. And it allows me to make things make sense. So yoga is for me.
Yeah, it's anything that you're doing that requires a little bit of focus that's helping you slow down and really be present in the moment, right? And that's how, yeah, I love that. Thank you, Energy. Jen, did you want to contribute?
Yes. So one of the very first things that I learned as learning through this coaching program is we do end results, we do choices. And so the first choice is I choose end results of being the predominant creative force in my life. And you really focus on that and really understanding that you're creating everything in your life. And so one of the things you do is you look at the values. If I was the predominant creative force in my life, what would that person value? Right? And you set up a whole list of values of a person who really truly embodied being the predominant creative force in their life. And then you look at your set of values and you see how they're different, right? And so then you can be like, okay, so I'm going to live from this set of values right now, the set of values of the predominant creative force in my life. So everything that you do, you can run by these set of values because you're creating everything. And so it really keeps you mindful because it's like, what action am I going to take? Well, is this action in alignment with this set of values or the set of values I have now? And if it's in the set of values I'm going to have now, well, that's going to create more of what I have now. And if I'm looking for something different, if I'm looking to be, to create this life that I love and to be the predominant creative force in my life and do all these things, live my true nature on purpose, maybe I should take a different action, right? What would that person do? What action would they take right now? And so it really keeps you focused on where you're going, the end results, and what actions to take next, right? And so it really, really helps me a lot to be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I need to take a breath. Maybe I don't need to say that to somebody. Maybe I need to actually get up and do something I don't want to do, or eat something I didn't necessarily want to eat, or whatever it is. But that's in alignment with this set of values.
I love that you mention alignment because I think that once we are, mindfulness cultivates a state of being that helps you move forward and helps you to move into alignment towards your highest desires, towards your highest trajectory or potential, or whatever, however you want to say it. So I'd love to hear from you all on how you see mindfulness as how people can move into alignment with their highest potential using mindfulness, or how they can reach their desires through mindfulness, or how they can move past the patterns and programming and stories to move forward through mindfulness. So everything we're doing is to move forward through the act of mindfulness. So yeah, if we could speak about that, Becky, please.
Yes, I love this. So this is one of the things that I really learned to focus on because I was an avid people pleaser. I would do whatever you wanted to do. And if you asked me what I wanted to do, I would say, oh, I want to do what you want to do. Because what it really boiled down to is I didn't know what I liked. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know where my boundaries were. I didn't know what I would tolerate and not tolerate. I was along for the ride. And what happens when you do that too long is you end up abandoning your own self, and you kind of lose track of who you really are because you don't know who you are. And through journaling and self-discovery and all of the reading and learning, you start understanding more of who you are at your core and what you like and where your boundaries are. And the thing about mindfulness is that once you learn a little something about yourself and you are mindful in your actions when you are with other people, that you start to realize, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do what you want to do, right? I want to do something different because I want my life to be different. Just like Jen said, I can't do the same thing and be different. And so when you learn where your boundaries are in whatever realm that is, you start living in alignment with your true self. But when you don't have boundaries and you are just sort of doing whatever you want to do, not purposefully, maybe not maliciously, but people start pushing those boundaries a little farther and a little farther and a little farther until you are completely out of alignment with your true self. And so being mindful of just who you are, what you believe, what you like, what you'll tolerate, and then acting on that, right? Acting on that, choosing different things based on those boundaries.
Yeah, so good. I think many of us that go into this industry are recovering, I like to say recovering people pleasers and perfectionists, right? Because this is how we learn to be our best selves through personal transformation. And so this is all about becoming mindful of your life. So thank you, Becky. I love that. Cynthia, would you like to go next?
Sure, such a rich topic to play with. Yeah, so I think that you had mentioned that, mindfulness means moving beyond the stories. And I'm like, stories, I'm all about the story. And I love, working with people and myself, frankly, and they'll say something, I go, that's a really interesting story. And they'll go, yeah. And I'm like, is it true? Because we adopt stories through mythology, through family, mythology, coming up and learning how to socialize. We socialize through stories, and they're not always true. And if we have a sabotaging behavior like people pleasing or hyperachievers, anyone, and those, which can be very beneficial characteristics for us, but when they tilt too far in one direction, then they can become self-sabotaging behaviors, and they no longer give you what you want. So then I think that understanding that they're telling they're telling you stories all the time, like, if you don't work this hard, nobody's going to respect you, or if you don't say yes to them when you want to say no, then they won't like you anymore. And very often these stories just aren't true. They're adopted and adapted behaviors that we don't even think about. So I think that mindfulness actually requires deep self-examination, and why so many people, I think, in the self-help professions are so involved with mindfulness. It becomes our daily mantra, because it requires deep honesty with ourselves at all times, so that we can show up more powerfully in the world, and we can help our clients and the people that we work with to show up more powerfully in the world intentionally through mindfulness.
Yeah, I agree with you. Thank you. Jen, would you like to talk about this?
Sure. So when I talk about success being structural, being not personal, structural, there's a 5-step process, right? So you start out with, what do you want to create? So let's just say I want to create a life that I love. That's what I want. And then you step into it, and you, through meditation or visualization being it, and then you look at your current reality. And then after you set that up, what I want to create, where am I now? You look at what's in the way, all those stories, all that resistance, which is, stuff that's been passed down to us, like Cynthia was saying, like all those different things, the beliefs, the patterns, the habits. And then you can really look at, okay, so let's see if we can neutralize these things. Let's see what's true. Let's see what's not true. So any modality, right, that you can use to demystify these things, to lessen these things, to allow them to, go away, right? And then you can take the action you need to take towards living a life that you love. And so that's where the mindfulness comes in, right? What's keeping you here instead of here in whatever choice you want? What story is here? And then you really look at it. And it doesn't really matter what technique you use. You can use meditation or visualization or therapy or journaling or whatever it is to really unwind those stories, so that you're able to take the actions that you need to take, that you want to take, you just haven't been able to take yet because of all this junk that's in the way. And so once you remove that, then you're like, oh, okay, now I can do this.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that. And I want to talk more about that. But first, I want to hear from Energy, and then we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Perfect. I love steps. So Jen, you're my girl. I want to follow it up with also three things that I like to use and would suggest when it comes to the topic of mindfulness. The first one definitely being starting off with self-awareness, just simply understanding or gaining an understanding of who you are. I believe, I think Lisa or Becky, one of you, you mentioned the term core, the core self, your core being. And that's what self-awareness is all about. Just taking that time, stepping away from all distractions and all people, all technology, in order to just truly learn who you are as an individual to your core. The next thing that I would say is self-control. A lot of times, mindfulness, the opposite of mindfulness, is just allowing things to happen around you, not understanding why things are happening. It may feel as though life is just passing you by. And I think Jen may have mentioned that the hamster wheel. And so self-control is the next step that I would suggest when it comes to just learning mindfulness and being able to implement it in your life. And the third thing that I would use would say spiritual wellness. Keeping it short, I would just say having or believing in something greater than self is another key piece of being able to achieve mindfulness.
Yeah, beautiful. I love all of them. Yeah, we need all of them. And I would like to come back to the self-control, but maybe we can tag it on to this question that I have that was brought up. I believe, Cynthia, you brought up self-sabotage. I'm not sure if it was you, but one of you. Anyway, all of you brought up it in some sort. But how can we, through mindfulness, identify the self-sabotaging behaviors that are creating resistance, that are creating lack of boundaries, that are creating all these things that get in the way of us going from where we are to where we want to be? So I'd love to hear from you, because I think this will be super helpful for the audience in how to identify these self-sabotaging behaviors, because they can be super sneaky. So who would like to start with that? Cynthia, go for it.
Thanks. What really comes to mind immediately are those patterns, especially patterns of behavior. It's like, oh my God, this is happening again. What is it? I've tried so hard. I've tried, everything that I can think of. And it's usually that hidden little shadow self, popping out like the beach ball that you hold under the water, that thing that you really don't want to admit or let the world see. And you can only hold it under the water so long before it shoots up and bops you in the nose. And those, I think that those sabotaging behaviors are those ones that show up despite your best interests of being smart enough and working hard enough and pleasing enough. They still happen. And so there is something to look at there for sure. Those things that keep tripping you up every single time. And then I think that the other thing is to look at, here's one, behaviors or I guess behaviors in others that you cannot tolerate. That's usually a reflection of something in yourself that you really don't want to look at, and it's worth looking at. Like the old saying, it's like when you point at somebody, you've got one finger pointing forward and, all the other fingers are pointing at yourself because there's something to look at there.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It's so true. We are reflections of each other, and we're all, if you go to the bigger picture, we're all one. And so we have all of these facets of ourselves, and what we're seeing that triggers us in somebody else or that gives us a response is definitely something to look at. And I love what you talk about, how you talk about the beach ball, because that resistance is the thing that you want to push away. You're just like, I'll do it later. I'm going to come back to it. This is not important. And you keep pushing it away, and it keeps coming because it needs to be addressed. So thank you. I love that. Let's see. Energy, do you want to go next?
Sure. I would say pay attention to your physical body and your senses. Your physical body will bring up certain things or will respond to certain things, whether that be you notice your body temperature may have increased suddenly, or you may have chill bumps going along your arms, or you notice your breathing or your heart may be beating at a faster pace, or your breathing is becoming more shallow. So your body is responding, and being mindful of that is what will help to identify certain self-sabotaging patterns or any other types of behaviors. So if we become really intentional and focus on those changes within our body, within our physical being, then that's one of the ways, at least it works for me, of how I tend to identify when certain things are coming up.
Yeah, that's so good, because our mind can play tricks on us, and our physical body gives us immediate feedback for what's going on around us. And most of the time we don't want to, we're not even paying attention. We're not mindful of our body and how it's talking to us. So becoming more in tune with that is a great tip. Thank you for that. Jen, love to hear from you on this.
So for me, what's really helped in dealing with like the self-sabotaging patterns was, one, understanding the human journey, which really is that we're all pure creative spirits. And before we're born, we're in our mom's womb, we have everything. Everything is taken care of us. We're loved, we're cared for, we're warm, everything is just there. And we don't have to do anything for it. And then we're born, and all of a sudden we don't have it all anymore. And so what happens is we create this wounding in us, and we create these beliefs of, well, why I have it anymore? What did I do? Right. And then those beliefs become our view of the world. And we realize, okay, I have to do this to get that, and I have to do this to get that. And that's really where the self-sabotaging patterns come in. Right. And so when you realize that you're still this pure creative spirit, you just, you're having this human experience. And then, when it comes to the sabotaging patterns, it's understanding that it's normal to have those. Like, it's okay to have those. There's nothing wrong with having those. You learn these things, and they served you because, you lost everything, or so you thought you lost everything. So you created this habit or this pattern to serve you in some way. So it's having grace and having, respect for those. And then also just, realizing, okay, so why do I want to do this? Like when I'm talking about what I want to create, what's my end result? Well, I want to do this. Well, what would I get if I have that? Well, maybe I'd get respect. Right. And so that means the sabotaging pattern of, belonging or being worth or not being worthy comes up. Right. So, you keep, why do I want this? Why do I want this? Why do I want this? And you see, like, the end result is, maybe I don't feel worthy. Maybe I don't feel significant. Maybe I don't feel good enough, or I feel like I'm going to not belong, or I'm not perfect enough. Right. And then it gets down to, okay, so then when that is, well, what's the truth? Is that true? Am I not perfect? Am I not good enough? Right. And you go back to, well, if I'm pure creative spirit like everyone else, maybe I am good enough just because I am. And you start really looking at the truth of the pattern. And then once you look at the truth of the pattern, do I even want this thing anymore? Well, maybe I want something else, and so you can keep moving forward that way.
Yeah, that's great. It's so potent to ask yourself, is this true? Is this true? In so many instances, is this really true? Is this true for me? It can be true for somebody else, but is this my truth? So thank you for bringing that up. Becky.
Yes, I'm going to piggyback on what Cynthia said, because when she started talking, I'm like, oh yes, this is it. For me, I love the study of duality and polarity, and the opposite of a truth is often also true. One of the things I'd like to use specifically is to piggyback off of what Cynthia said about when we judge other people, that's really a reflection of something that we judge in ourselves. And I think a lot of times, even for me too, sometimes you will be angry at someone for being late. Okay, let's just say that. And you're just like, oh, they're always late. They're late to work, or they're late for dinner, or they're late. And it's upsetting to you, right? And you start to judge them. Oh, they don't care about our relationship, or they don't care about being responsible, or whatever you feel. And you start to really judge them. And it's hard to turn that around on yourself. It really is. It takes an amazing level of self-awareness to say, wait a second, I've been late before, but I had a good excuse, right? There's always a good excuse. My dog barfed, or there was a train and I couldn't get across the tracks or something. There's always a really good excuse. But one of the things that I like to say and to write about is that judgment and compassion are actually two sides of the same coin. Both judgment and compassion towards other people are reflections of how you feel about your inner self. And judgment occurs when someone else's behavior shines a light on something you dislike, feel shame, or have not forgiven yourself for. Compassion occurs when someone else's behavior shines a light on something you have already forgiven yourself for. And so if I can say, gosh, sometimes I am late, but I always have a good excuse. I don't just not show up for people. But sometimes I am late. And could you turn that around and say, you know what, maybe they had a really good excuse too. I bet they encountered something and they were upset about being late. Or maybe you can just say, sometimes things like this happen and you don't have to have feelings about it at all. You can just accept it. They are late. You don't have to have compassion or judgment for it. You can just accept it as it is. And so when it comes to self-sabotage, sometimes we can ruin relationships with people because their behavior is shining a light on something that we don't like about ourselves, or that we feel negatively about.
Yeah, so good. And it's, it's so true, because we make up stories about what it means when that's really not necessarily we don't know what it means. We don't know. We're not in their shoes, right? But we're making up all these stories that belong to us about the other person. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Becky. That's super powerful. So we've got about 15 minutes left. And what I'd love to hear from you all is maybe your best tip or technique or practice for being mindful on a daily basis. How can our listeners become more mindful so they can experience more calmness and fulfillment? So let's hear from you. Becky, go ahead.
I have a great one. This is something I love to do. Now, I live in a very small town, and it's very rural. So this may not work in a city, but I like to go on walks and try to listen for all non-human sounds. So no people, no motors, no mowers, but they're there, right? There is that level of noise pollution. It's always there, but trying to hear all the other things and then trying to identify them. So you'll start, oh, there's a bird up here and there's a locust or a cricket down here. And, I heard a dog bark. I think they were a block or two behind me. And you start listening, and it's almost like all of a sudden you feel like you can hear blocks away. Because you're really paying attention to those nature-y type sounds. Now, in a city with a lot more noise pollution, I don't know that would be possible or as easy. It's possible, but it probably wouldn't be as easy. The other thing that I like to do, which also probably wouldn't work in a hot city, is I like to smell. What can I smell? Now, that may only work in like a park or a trail or a hike or something like that. You don't really want to be smelling your neighbor's garbage as you walk down the street. But I love to see what I can hear and smell that aren't in this immediate place, because a lot of times when you go on a walk or you start going on a walk, you're kind of still in your head, right? You're thinking about the things you got to do when you get home, and you're thinking about the things you did earlier today. And if you can go, okay, what can I hear? And all of a sudden you become very present and mindful of what is going on around you. And I love doing that. It's fun.
Yes, thank you. And the rich smells, like the smell of the earth, or after, if somebody's mowed their lawn, and or this, yeah, all those smells. I love that. And the sounds of the birds. Thank you. That's awesome. Who would like to share next? Jen, go for it.
I would say the first thing is have really true choices and results of where you're going, starting with the core 4. So I choose end results of being the predominant creative force in my life. I choose end result of living a life that I love. I choose end result of living my true nature and purpose. And I choose the end result of full health and vitality, or having a supportive and healthy body. And then having a morning routine. So every morning you write those choices down, and then you spend a few minutes just stepping into them. So you close your eyes and you visualize yourself having, say, okay, so if I were this already, what would that be like? And use all of your senses for each one, and get your body knowing that this is safe, that this is what you want to create. And then, you ask yourself, okay, so what actions can I take today that will lead me there? And then there's a whole morning routine where you can take basically your big picture vision and bring it down to 90-day, 30-day, weekly, and then daily. So you're always working towards your vision every day. And so by doing that every morning, and focusing on your choices every morning, and stepping into them every morning, and doing meditation every morning, you're setting yourself up for, that's your focus for the day. This is where you're going, right? And so whenever you're going through the day, you can come back to that, say, where's my focus, right? I feel like I'm out of alignment. Where's my focus? And so you can bring your focus back. Okay, this is what I'm creating today. Taking a moment, stepping back into it, and then taking your action again, and bringing your focus back, and bringing your focus back, and bringing your focus back, because you will get pulled in all these different directions, but you can take a moment to say, okay, so my focus is over here. Let's bring my focus back to what I want. Let's bring my focus back to what I want. Let's bring my focus back to what I want. And it starts with the morning, right? It starts with setting yourself up that this is what I'm creating today. This is who I am going to be today. And so it's already ingrained in you, and your body starts getting used to that feeling that this is safe, and this is good, and this is what I want. And you're able to keep, bringing your focus back.
Yeah, and it works. I mean, that totally works. I love all those different choice end results that you mentioned, and having a morning routine, I think, is so important. It grounds you. I notice that when I don't do my morning routine, I'm a little scattered. And so having that kind of grounds you. And like you were mentioning, Jen, it just brings everything into the present moment, so that you are living what you want now. So beautifully put. Thank you. Energy, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Once again, I'm falling right in line with Jen. For me, it's all about being intentional. And one of the things that I like to describe is, most people, when they wake up in the morning, when that alarm clock goes off, most people are up and they start running. But for me, and my tip that I would give to all the listeners, is to be very intentional, even at the beginning of your day. So that means, or that looks like, once you wake up, before your feet hit the ground, do a self check of your body. Make sure all your fingers are still working, your toes, or you can wiggle your toes, you feel your legs, your breathing is fine and normal. So do that self check at the beginning of the day, and the intentionality starts there, along with throughout the day, being very intentional about your thoughts, being very intentional about what situations or environments or atmospheres you're putting yourself into. And this goes to what Becky was saying as well. The environment, a change of your environment can help with whatever situation that you're currently dealing with, or will just help you become more mindful. And with being intentional throughout your day with every single thing, it will allow you to also increase your level of patience with yourself, as well as your level of patience with others. And I'll end by saying that will also help you extend grace to yourself as well throughout this journey.
I love that energy. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, patience is so patience is so underrated. I mean, we learn to just go, 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 go. And I remember waking up, like you were saying, waking up with a checklist in my head. Okay, I got to do this. And that would be my, and it just, gosh, it can be so much better than that. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Cynthia.
Okay, so I love this question so much. Tara Brach, who is a meditation teacher and therapist, says that our bodies are the way we connect with the world. It's through our senses that we connect with the world, and that's how we experience it. And so, like Becky, during COVID, actually, I started hearing things that I hadn't heard before, because even though I don't live in a city, I live in wine country, but I live near a highway. And I never realized until COVID, when people stopped driving, that there was always this noise going on in the background. And once that disappeared, I was able to hear the wildlife around, which was such a treat. And even if that's just the wind blowing in the trees, you don't hear it if there's also the sound of truck engines, half a mile away. So I think that that's one way of tuning into your senses, something that I learned to do a couple of years ago when I was commuting. And I, get stuck in traffic like we all do, and just wanted to be home and, take off my shoes. I had this revelation one day, and I was stuck in traffic, and I'm in this beautiful country, between San Francisco and Napa Valley. And I was stuck in this traffic. And so instead of stewing about the traffic before me and whoever caused this jam and all that place that we go, I just rolled down the windows and I just started looking around, and it's beautiful. And to notice the play of light, at differing times of day, and how that affects the landscape. It's such a beautiful feeling. Another thing that Tara Brach says is one way to enter mindfulness is to say yes to what shows up, instead of going into that automatic resistance. So yes, it's traffic. This gives me an opportunity to decompress, or, to think about more mindfully how I want to spend my evening. And so using it not as something to fight against. Life is showing up all the time. But how can I work with what's showing up to achieve that sense of peace and tranquility that mindfulness brings?
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. I spent so much of my life rushing from one place to another, without really slowing down. And I remember somebody asking me, well, why don't you just leave a little bit earlier so you don't have to rush? And I thought, I never really thought about that, but it is so peaceful when you don't have to rush. And I don't rush anymore. I will not rush. I will not allow myself to rush, because it just puts such extra pressure on you. And I think what I hear everyone saying today is presence, being present in the moment, because in the moment you can make choices. You can be mindful of and aware of your environment, of your situation, of your stories, of your body, of the sounds and sights and how you react, and what is your truth. In the present moment is where everything happens. And so it's really not living from the past in the stories, not living in the future of what has not happened yet, although we can move ourselves forward into the future through the present moment. But being in the present moment is the sweet spot. We're bringing everything into the present moment. So just want to thank you all so much. And if you would, we have 5 more minutes. So I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit about maybe what you have to offer. If you have a free gift or a workshop or something going on, maybe just give a short description and then pop the link in the chat, so Sophia can grab that. So who has something that they'd like to talk about? I know you all do. So who wants to go first? Becky.
I feel like I am first because on my screen, I'm the first picture. So, well, my link is becky-edwards.com, and I will put that in the chat here quickly when I'm done. But this is my book, and this is the companion 90-day journal. If you go to my website and click on the picture of the journal, you can get the first 5 days, the first 10 pages for free. You can see what that layout is like. You can see how I created the journal. And then if you wanted to purchase the journal after you see those, or you use those for the first 5 days, you can go back and click on that link and purchase it.
Perfect. Thank you, Becky. Sounds awesome. Jen.
So you can find me on Facebook, Jen Rosner, or my page, Conscious Law of Attraction. And also I am a tribe leader on Sacred You. And so you can join Sacred You, and we have weekly tribe meetings. And my meeting, we really discuss everything about the foundational principles of conscious creation. So we talk about the morning routine, we talk about our unconscious minds and meditation and all kinds of other different principles of conscious creation, so that you can really learn how to become the conscious creator of your life and create a life that you love. So
Perfect. That sounds awesome. Yes. And that link will be underneath or somewhere that you can click on to with these descriptions. Perfect. Awesome, Jen. Energy.
Thank you. So the offer that I have for your audience, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak on your platform, is if they go to my website, and I am putting the link in the chat right now, they will be able to receive 50% off my latest release product. And it's called What's Your Passcode? Keys to Hacking Access to the Life of Your Dreams. And I covered some of those keys throughout this conversation today. And one of those first three were self-awareness, self-control, and spiritual wellness. So if you go to the website and you use the code Sacred U, and that's the letter U, then you will be able to receive 50% off. And this is the product here. So make sure you take advantage. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. We'll make sure to keep to have that link and the code in the description there. Thank you. And Cynthia.
I have a couple of free offers. I am going to be hosting a free workshop on September 10 called Love Notes from Your Soul. And it is my writing process of accessing deeper wisdom for anyone who wants to experience what that's like through automatic writing and stream of consciousness writing. And I also have a free guide to journaling with your angels and archetypes. One of my favorite things to talk about is mythology and archetypes, and how we can embody, how we do actually embody those mythic creatures. And so I'll be putting both of those links in the chat, as well as a link to my website.
Perfect. Oh, this is so good. Such a great discussion. I just want to thank all of you so much for sharing your wisdom and for joining us today, and for your offers that you have for the audience. I think they're going to be super helpful. And for all those listening, we just encourage you to put all that you learned into action. Every little tidbit that you resonated with, if you just put, one or two of those things into action, you'll discover a different way of life. You'll discover a totally transformational way of life. I know it because I've lived it, and so have all the experts here. So thank you so much for being here. And Sophia, did you want to say a little bit of something about Sacred You?
Oh, if you'd like me to. But yeah, first of all, may I just thank you, Lisa, and thank everyone else for joining us, and thank Angel for helping us today. It has been a really wonderful conversation. I've been listening in and learning lots. Love all your tips, everyone's tips. Yes, so Sacred You. Now, but before that, first of all, coming up, our next conversation, which is next week. I know, Lisa, you are running Living Our Life with Astrology and Tarot. which is the same time next week. And then the day before that is Navigating the Gifts of a Highly Sensitive Person. So for everyone out there who is watching, and we do have quite a few people watching us, tune in same time next week for Living Your Life with Astrology. All I said the day before is Navigating the Gifts of a Highly Sensitive Person. Also roughly the same time. So sacredyou.love is the website of our sacred community. So it's Sacred You with the letter U. And you can come and join us now. We have over 30 tribes. Lisa's tribe is Rise Up, Embody Your Infinite Light. And Jen is Conscious Law of Attraction. Plus Lisa is the co-host of Finding You Again. Finding something like, sorry Lisa.
Finding me.
Yeah. Finding me. Plus we've got so many other tribes, and you can join us now as a foundation member for just $1. It's $1 Australian dollar. Try us all out for 3 weeks, and then after that it's just 15 Australian dollars a month.
Yeah, so worth it.
So yeah, click on the links in all the comments, and that's me in the background. Sorry about the noise. So come and join us, and thank you for everyone who's here. It has been a wonder. It's been really, really, really nice, and we shall say farewell to the social media world, and we'll see you all next time.